Alright guys, after multiple times of trying to mess with the camera and get everything set up, we're finally ready to go. I got my friend Thomas here, and I'm Joseph, your host, and this is Joey's Corner, where we talk sports. We're just going to get into a little sports action and, yeah, just talk about a little bit of everything in the sports world. So, what's been going on with you mainly?
I'm doing well. Been watching all the action that's going down for college football playoff time coming about here in a few weeks. Miami goes down yesterday to Syracuse. Went in the other big upsets that happened yesterday. Georgia Tech, well, they kind of choked there, but we'll take that one on the chin. We took the Dogs to a good 4 regulation and 4 overtimes, so, you know.
Full 8 overtime, yeah. But talking about football, it's kind of hard to mention football and not talk about the Chiefs and everything that they've been doing. Obviously, they've been on a run, and me and Thomas are notorious Pat Mahomes supporters. This season, we have been preying on the downfall of the Chiefs a little bit, just because we do think they're a little bit fraudsterish. We do think they're a little bit overrated, especially this season. Maybe not in seasons of past, but especially this season a little bit. But they have been finding ways to get it done, whether it's wizardry or the Mahomes magic, as some people call it. It's yet to be seen. But talking about Pat Mahomes specifically, the question that we're left with today is, what does a three-peat mean for not only Pat Mahomes' legacy, but what does it mean for the Chiefs? What does it mean for that organization? And the question was originally framed as, does it enshrine him in the Hall of Fame? But what I really want to ask is, does it make him on that same level as Tom Brady already in terms of accomplishments?
I mean, I believe it puts him on the same level of GOAT status, per se. We'll see if he gets to the 8-ring status. He still has a lot more football to play. But talking about this season in general, Travis Kelce didn't get out to a good start. Kind of struggling with interceptions and touchdown ratio. So they go out, trade for DeAndre Hopkins, try to find some help there. They lose Rashee Rice, lose Isaiah Pacheco. So Mahomes is just kind of left there to carry the team. And somehow he's found ways to win games. The only game they lost so far is against Buffalo, but those are two teams that just kind of clashed at it. Came down to a fourth quarter. So, yeah, I believe that Mahomes, if he gets it done and wins another Super Bowl, he'll be up there near Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that. I think that a three-peat is probably the best accolade that we've seen, both as an individual statistic and as a team metric, just because, I mean, I don't think there was ever a 3-year span that the Patriots had that even close to rivals a three-peat.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think you have to put the accolades right up there with him. So I think we will be having that kind of discussion with Tom Brady. People are already having it. I think this will put him right there in that status. Not surpass him. He's not quite there yet, but I think it puts him right there in that status. But talking about quarterbacks, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our beloved Kirk Cousins, Kirk
Yes.
Chains. And me and Thomas, we've been a little iffy on him this season. Sometimes he's brought us to 500 yards passing and really led the team on some game-winning drives. And then sometimes he really lets you down, throws 2 picks and a fumble, and just typical Atlanta Falcons fashion. So what I wanted to ask Thomas is, do we think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? Not just talking statistics, but talking about ball in the hands of your quarterback. Do you think he's a top 5 guy you would want to have?
I think he's shown some light, some flashes this season against Tampa Bay, against the Eagles. Going down, you got to kick a field goal to get it to overtime. So, and then that puts the ball in Kirk's hands in overtime, and they eventually go out and win the game. But coming off his Achilles surgery, he's kind of been rough, had the rough patches around him, trying to find his rhythm again in the Atlanta offense. So I'm going to have to disagree on this one, just because he's shown some inconsistencies so far.
All right, so that being said, let's go ahead and go over who our top 5 are, and I'll let you go ahead and start. Just for this season, based on statistics, based on mainly what I want to focus on here is when I'm saying top 5, you can kind of push statistics aside
Right.
a little bit, but they do have to be factored into your initial kind of argument for these guys.
So obviously this season at number 1 I got Lamar Jackson. He's putting on a show.
Absolutely.
Number 2 I put Josh Allen under Lamar. 3 Patrick Mahomes. At 4, depending on his offensive line week to week, not giving up sacks, I'd put C.J. Stroud. He tends to put on a show. And 5, we have a lot of good teams in the NFL, but I'll put Jalen Hurts at 5. The past few weeks, they've been putting on a show in Philly. That team seems to be coming together, not just handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley, but Hurts seems to have found his rhythm, and he can throw that ball down the field when needed to A.J. Brown, Smith, or just take off and run it.
Yeah, he's been getting the tight ends involved too with Goddard. But with that, we have what I like to call a good old-fashioned clash. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the notepad here, and Thomas is going to go ahead and set us up on the timer. And basically, it's just good old-fashioned. I'm going to go ahead and start my before you start that, I'm going to go ahead and list my top 5, and then we'll go over some good old fashions. And basically, at the end of the pod, whoever has the most points for them in total after all the quote unquote disagreements that we've had will basically get a win for this podcast. But I disagree with some of his picks there. I do think I have Lamar in my 1 spot. He's just been, I think he's, in terms of raw talent, just the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, especially this season. He's putting together just such a great season. I wish we had him. We had loomings that we were going to trade for him, and when I say we, I refer to the Falcons. There were some reports that we might trade for him. Obviously, it didn't happen. The Ravens don't want to let go one of the best talents of all time.
Yeah, that was kind of a tease situation there where Lamar was like, "Well, I want to be traded." And then the Ravens came up and finally forked out the money. But I can say one thing. Good thing we didn't trade for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. No, but at any rate, that's going to be my number 1. I think Joe Burrow has to unanimously be the number 2. It's just unfortunate everything that's been happening with his team. But statistically, this is probably his best season that we've seen from him. He's going out and putting out 300-yard passing weeks. He's throwing for an insane amount of touchdowns, not really turning the ball over. He's putting his team on some game-winning drives, and then the defense is just losing him the ball game, so that's really unfortunate. And then I'd have to say probably in my 3 spot, I really like Joe Burrow. At the 3 spot, he's just excuse me, did I say Joe Burrow again?
Yes.
I really like Josh Allen in the number 3 spot for the Bills. He's a threat with his legs. He's a threat with his arm. They traded away Stephon Diggs. He essentially has nobody to pass to. It's just really just been a nightmare over there in terms of like the personnel and everybody they've lost. Obviously you want a Super Bowl. The Bills fandom wants a Super Bowl, and they just haven't been able to get over the top. They haven't been able to get there yet, and it's just unfortunate. Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I just think that's what really puts them in that conversation. And then for my 4. I think it's a toss-up. I could have a lot of guys in the 4. Not Patrick Mahomes this season. I disagree with Thomas. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback this season. I think the coaching has won the games. I think the defense have won the games. I think the special teams has won the games. I don't think Pat Mahomes has really came out and won a lot of games. I think a lot of calls have gone their way. But I don't think he's top 5. So you can have Hurts there. I guess maybe Stroud. He hasn't been playing at the caliber that we've known him to play last season or anything like that. He's having an okay sophomore campaign. So you insert anyone there, and then I have Kirk Cousins in my 5 spot just because what we've really seen from him when he does get going. The wind is really churning up out here. But when he really does get going, that's what you like to see from him. You really like. You see a lot of what you like, and when he's not going, I mean, that's true for any quarterbacks. Joe Burrow has off weeks, Lamar Jackson has off weeks. Everybody's going to have an off week, but yeah, I just, I want to hear your opinion on it. We'll go ahead and give me 1 point for you. How much time are we working with? Have you started it yet?
No, I'm about to
start.
start.
Okay, so you can go ahead and start it. So I'm going to start this off with 1.4, and we're going to have 2 minutes to kind of go back and forth and see if we can come to a conclusion of who we think deserves that spot.
All right.
So you can go ahead and start.
So I do kind of agree with your Kirk Cousins sneaking in the top 5 there.
Right there at the end, yeah.
We saw him in Minnesota with the play action, have his shades. He's kind of done that this season, but that Denver game just kind of knocked him out for me of the top 5 there. He kind of came out. We had big hopes that Atlanta would get out of that funk, but the offense just couldn't get going. So, a couple turnovers here and there. Kuz missing his kicks. And when Kirk Cousins can't seem to move the ball, the offense is just kind of stagnant. Like, it's
That's
just
true.
punt city. So, he just has to find that consistency. Sorry. So at 5, looking at my list and your list, I would probably put Jared Goff at 5,
Okay.
being the Lions are on a historic run, switching plays, running trick plays. We saw
Yeah, no, absolutely.
we saw offensive linemen take an end around. Goff throwing flea flickers, and the defense just can't seem to stop that Detroit team.
No, absolutely. I got to agree with you there, but I do want to mention something. You said that consistency was a big issue for Kirk Cousins, and one bad game put him outside of your top 5. Then what about Jared Goff's 5 interception game? How does he stay in the top 5 for you? And I'm going to go ahead and add a point for me. Because
That's a good point. Comparing him and Goff, Kirk Cousins has a lot of praise. Like, we've seen him in Washington. We've seen him in Minnesota. Now in Atlanta. He's
name of the timer, and we'll go ahead and make closing remarks here.
he was a backup for Robert Griffin, if I'm not mistaken.
He was.
So he took Washington to the playoffs a few times. And then from there went to Minnesota, took him to the playoffs a few times. But he just kind of can't reach that level compared to Jared Goff, where they reached out to the Rams. Detroit reached out to the Rams, said, hey, we'll give you Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff for Jared Goff. And it seems like the Rams fan base just kind of wanted Jared Goff out.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
After that one bad Super Bowl they had. And to which the Rams did win a Super Bowl, but Goff is kind of trending in that right direction with the Lions right now. MCDC has him in his area he wants to be in.
Yeah.
And 5 picks, that's bad, but it seems like they have a bounce back week.
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying. I think you just look a little bit too much. You're a little bit more critical of the Falcons just because you want them to win.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're trying to make the claim that him getting beat down by,
It was 38-6, right?
Yeah, but I think what you're missing here is that it's not just his fault. Yes, it is in his hands to get the ball going and churning downfield, but the thing is, when Jared Goff struggles, it kind of gets swept under the rug because you have the best rushing threat in the league, and you have a very ballsy coach. He's not afraid to go for it on 4th and 1,000 yards, and the defense is going to show up big. That's one thing that we've been lacking. You don't let up 38 points. You may not lose that game. It's a more competitive ball game. The Lions have just been churning on all cylinders, whether they're injured or not. They find ways to get going, and I think that just sweeps all of Jared Goff's concerns under the rug, which is why his 5 interception game pushed him out of the top 5. I had him in my top 5, but that just kind of pushes him out for me because I think you put Jared Goff in the same situation in Atlanta. You throw 5 picks, you're getting beat down 100-0.
Yeah, true.
So,
True.
so that was a good conversation. I think I had to give it slightly to me, but I think you could probably go either way. So we're going to say 3-2 on that. With the slight advantage, and then if we come back, we will come back to that. But yeah, it was a good talk. I appreciate your thoughts on that. I think Thomas knows that he likes Kirk Cousins in his top 5. He's just a little disappointed with that beat down last week, so he had to throw some shade on him. But no, it's absolutely understandable. So talking quarterbacks, we're going to move right on into Lamar Jackson. Me and Thomas probably some of the biggest Lamar Jackson fans you'll ever find. Let me go over here and make sure my angle is just still good, that y'all can see us, so y'all can make us out. But yeah, anyway, sorry about that. I'm just gonna go ahead and trend on into Lamar Jackson. The question I wanted to ask Thomas is that if Lamar can find a way to go for anywhere near 4,500 passing yards, so if he's anywhere in that 41 to 44 or 45 mark passing, and then he eclipses 800-900, maybe probably 1,000 yards isn't attainable anymore, just because he's had a couple of those weeks that were kind of slow rushing, 3 yards here, 15 yards there. But the real question that I really wanted to ask was, like, if he throws for 30, 43, 44 passing, 100 passing yards, and then he has that 800-900 yard rushing season, is that like a top 3 quarterback season that we've ever seen, or could it be contending for the greatest quarterback season?
I believe it's contending for the greatest quarterback season in this era of football, just because football has gotten more competitive compared to, I think I looked it up maybe the other day, compared to Peyton Manning and Lamar's just, when they get that offense going, him, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman is getting involved now.
Starting to get some work in there,
yeah. When they get going, they're on fire. They can't be stopped. Some games they start on fire, but then they tend to let up on the gas pedal, like
a little bit,
like the Bengals, and they had a couple other games in there. But yeah, I believe this will be the greatest season from a quarterback.
Wow, yeah, that's a bold statement. I really do like that. I think a lot of other, this is why I like speaking to Thomas about sports, because a lot of other, especially like Stephen A. Smith and a lot of commentators that you see on ESPN now, before Lamar Jackson really got hot, they didn't like him as a prospect. They thought he was too running back.
Yeah.
That's been a term that's been shading his name for a long time, is that, he's a running back. He's not a guy that can throw the ball 60 yards downfield. He's not a guy that can win you the game. He's not going to have those 300-yard passing games with 5 passing touchdowns. But we've seen that from him now.
If you go back and look at week 1, they're a toe in from beating Kansas City. And Kansas City starts 0-1, and they lose to Buffalo. So they have 2 losses there. But a toe kept them from starting undefeated.
Yeah, and I really do think that if you have a quarterback that can throw for 300 yards and rush for 100 yards, you're not going to lose very many games.
No.
And what are you going to do? They've built such a winning culture there with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. You have 2 of the scariest rushers in the league, and so if he fakes the pass, if he fakes the handoff, and you have Derrick Henry going to the right, and you have Lamar, start fading to the left, you have, an 8-man blitz coming, and then he's wide open to throw the pass because everybody's scared of that run.
Yeah.
And I think that's just been so overlooked. Everybody's like, you all you need is a guy that sits in the pocket, but I think it's so much more than that. And I've always loved the dual threat quarterback. Unfortunately, we haven't had that in Atlanta in such a long time, since Michael Vick, obviously, but I think it's just electric. I think he's so fun to watch.
This is another thing that's overlooked, not just dual threat, but if you look in that backfield, Baltimore still plays a fullback.
Yeah.
So they have a combined 400-ish, 500 pounds in the backfield just blocking for him.
Yeah.
So if you're a defensive lineman that's weak, and how are you going to block that? Lamar's gone.
Yeah. No, yeah, I got to agree with you there. Yeah, it was a good discussion. I think Lamar he's on a trend. I think he could go down as one of the best quarterbacks of all time if he keeps this up. The 3 MVPs, that's going to be massive for him. I have a feeling he wins the MVP. They might find a way to snub him, but I think that conversation could go either way. So we're probably going to avoid that conversation today, just because the MVP race is so tight, and what the MVP has meant in the last seasons has kind of changed. So we'll kind of turn away from that, but that was a good discussion. We're going to move on to college football now for just a brief second. Thomas and I have been chatting a lot about the Heisman. So we're going to go ahead and trend on over to the Heisman Trophy. And what's funny is that on my notes here, I have, will they manage to snub Ashton Jeanty of the Heisman? And what's funny is that I wrote that about 3 weeks ago when he was my clear favorite. And since last week, my opinions have changed.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's really, I'm gonna let Thomas speak in just a minute, but I think it's really unfortunate. And I just want to say my piece here because I think I'm kind of pissed off, not at Travis Hunter, not at anyone specific, but I'm just kind of annoyed that Jeanty had to have a season like he did at the same time that Travis Hunter is playing college football, because at any other time in the past 10 years or probably in like 3-4 years in the future, Travis Hunter is not in the conversation. He wins the Heisman 5 times over.
Yeah.
Like, I just think he's having one of the best running back seasons we've ever seen. I don't give a crap about the conference that he plays in. You can take that on somewhere. I think that's a crappy argument. I don't think it holds any water. But yeah, really, what this conversation means is I really just wanted to talk with Thomas and kind of compare the seasons, talk about why you think Travis Hunter really, made the argument for himself and just kind of silenced everyone that's saying, hey, someone else can win the Heisman, and he's just kind of like, no, I am the Heisman. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what he did to really separate himself.
So we saw Friday, Colorado won in a 52-0 beatdown.
Right.
Everybody had a breakout game.
Everybody on that team.
So we saw him catch a few touchdowns, played every offensive snap, played every defensive snap, had an interception, couple touchdowns on the offense, and he's really been doing this all season. Even though Colorado did not make their championship game, they started out a little shaky and then made a run and then had a trap game against Kansas, to which, Travis Hunter can't help that, but he's produced in just about every game. And the only disadvantage I have against Jeanty is that Hunter plays both sides of the ball. So he's able to get touchdowns in any way on offense and able to snag interceptions on defense.
Yeah, and I think what really pushes Travis Hunter over in that terms of not only who is the Heisman, because when we're looking at it from like a framed perspective, we don't always think, hey, who's having this amazing year? We also like to look at like who is just like the sheer better talent. What have we really not seen before? And the argument against Jeanty is that yes, he's amazing. Yes, he's having an amazing season, but we've seen stuff that's kind of like as and kind of similar to his season. We've never seen somebody like Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
We've seen some guys that show flashes, but nobody has been doing it at the consistency and at the level that he's been doing, playing that number of snaps, producing that much. He has like what, 1,200 yards or 1,100 yards of offense, something like that, and 13, 14 touchdowns to match, and then he has five interceptions, pass breakups, tackles. He's all over the field. He's not getting tired. He's just a freak of nature, and I just think it just goes to show like this new generation of players. Obviously, when he gets in the NFL, he's probably not going to be able to maintain that. Nobody really does. But it's just something that's special. He's in Division I, and he's doing it at this level. And I just think, you got to hand him the trophy. You got to give him his props. He's an amazing player. I love to watch him. I think he's a big part. He goes so unnoticed, but he's a big part of what Colorado does.
Yeah.
And that winning culture that they've established over there, it flows through him. And they just have something special over there.
A lot of people are, closing remarks for me, a lot of people were underestimating Colorado this year. They were saying they were going to win 3 games again this year.
Yeah.
But like I said, they started out 1-2, and then they just went on a run because they found that connection, and they really took off. And Hunter was a big part of that, not just Shedeur or Shiloh. Travis Hunter was a big producer from them in that game, or the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's just so special. But now, since we're already on the topic of college football, I really, really, really want to talk about the 12-team playoff for a minute. I don't really know Thomas's opinions on it yet, so it's going to be interesting to see if we disagree on this. But what I really wanted to ask is, what is the outlook of the 12-team playoff? And what I mean by that is it going to be more exciting? Is it going to be more entertaining than the 4-team? And also, is it better than the 4-team format? Sorry about that. 4-team format. Can we basically, what I'm trying to ask is, by making it a 12 team, is it more effective at really producing a pure champion, and also is it more exciting? And then when I ask that, I'm also saying the regular season, what does it do to the regular season, and what does it do to the postseason? And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's going to be more interesting than a 14 playoff, because you get teams that have made a run, you get teams that were really underestimated in that playoff. You know, the playoff committee may have their excuses. That's all kind of hosh-posh to me. Strength of schedule, conferences, you know. But I think it'll be more interesting to see if we have an underdog champion make a run.
Absolutely.
Because you win that one game, you carry momentum. And it's also going to be interesting to see if these championships coming up on Saturday, if the loser is punished and gets put out of the playoff for losing a championship game.
Absolutely. That's a little scary, especially for us UGA fans. But yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to ask. So just to be clear, you do think that the 12-team playoff is both more exciting and it's a more effective way to produce a pure champion and a real champion?
Yeah, at least this season. I would love to see them expanded to 16, kind of like NFL style, just to get 4 more teams in there. You know, South Carolina is sitting at 15 right now.
Yeah.
But they didn't make the championship game, so let's see what happens. Their fate is kind of up in the air right now. So
no, and that's interesting. Sorry to cut you off, but that's interesting. I haven't heard anyone say that they wanted to have it expanded 4 more spots. I think that's a very fresh take, and I like that take from Thomas, because I've been a real big fan of the Gamecocks. Me and Thomas both have, and they there's a good chance that they still find, even with the losses yesterday, they still find a way to snub them from the playoff, and I think they could be your national champions this year if you got them in there. And yeah, that's a fresh take. I haven't heard that. I think I might have to agree with that. I think a 16-team playoff might actually be a pretty fun idea, pretty cool idea that they might want to incorporate.
Not only that, but fans get college football for longer.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure the NCAA might look at that idea because they like revenue.
Yeah, absolutely.
They like TV ratings. So I would definitely love to see 16 for seasons like South Carolina is having this year, just to see what those teams can do and if they sneak in a playoff spot.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just bonkers because the committee almost has like some lack of brain power, just because I don't care about 3 losses. Your 3 losses were all to ranked opponents.
Right.
I would rather you have 3 losses to ranked opponents than 2 losses to unranked opponents, because what does that say about your program?
Right.
I mean, 2 of their losses, one to Alabama 25-27 and one to LSU 36-33.
Something like that.
How do you penalize them for losing close games to really good teams? I don't think you can. Now LSU, they're unranked now, whatever. They're still a good team. They're ranked at the time. Obviously, they were playing at a level that was good then. Maybe they fell off since then, but you can't penalize what their record is now. You have to go off what happened and what it was. And Alabama's still a great football team. They're 13th. And Ole Miss is still ranked. So, I don't know. I think the committee needs to change. And I also do think expanding it to a bigger playoff is a cool idea. But anyway, we're going to trend on to a fun, exciting question, and then we also have a couple of pop-up questions. Me and Thomas were texting the other day and got a couple of kind of on the spur-of-the-moment ideas. But for now, he was just touching a little bit on Colorado and saying, you know, at the start of the season, people were thinking they were going to be a 3-win team, thinking they were going to suck. What I really wanted to ask you is, in the whole sports world, that's, you know, we don't talk a whole lot MLS, we don't talk a whole lot about soccer, but we can include them in this conversation. So soccer... I don't know anything about hockey, so we're not going to get into hockey.
I don't know much about hockey. I know a few teams.
So soccer, baseball, football, and basketball, both college and pro level. Who do you think is a team right now that people are like, you know, the game is on, and it's one of those, this team again, you know, they suck.
Right.
Where next year, and maybe not next year, maybe 2-3 years down the line, you see flashes that they're maybe starting to build a winning culture, and like, what's a team where you think, hey, in 2 or 3 years, right now they suck. They might go under 500 this season, but like 2-3 years down the road, they might be one of those teams that's contending for a championship. Do you have any teams like that off the top of your head that you think might be real?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with stay in the college football realm. They weren't under 500 this year, but they were sucking at the beginning of the season. Under 500, started 4-5, I think, at going into the Georgia game. I'm gonna go with the Florida Gators. DJ Lagway is a dog.
I like that. No, I like that. Yeah, the Florida Gators. Do you have something you want to add to that?
They've shown that they can win football games. They were in it with Georgia till Lagway, I think he injured a hamstring.
Unfortunately, yeah.
A couple other injuries kind of killed their momentum. And then, Georgia being Georgia, they found their momentum.
Yeah,
but they hung with Georgia.
Yeah, they just kind of flipped it and just gave them a good old-fashioned beatdown. But I did not think he was going to go with the Gators. I haven't heard a lot of flashes about the Gators this season. Like I said, we're always on that same wavelength. I think it's kind of crazy in the conversations that I've had with people this season. You don't hear Florida. You don't hear anyone saying anything about Florida. And the couple of things that I have heard about Florida is they're a sucky team. They suck. They're not the team of the past. And I'm like, are you an idiot? Like, if you sit down and watch the games, does anyone know anything about the SEC anymore? Like, the SEC is the hardest division, the hardest conference in football to play in. And they've been in games, and I heard on the radio the other day, a guy actually made a good comparison, is that maybe Florida, well, not even maybe, Florida isn't a bad team. They've just been losing to slightly better teams, and that reflects badly on their record. And I think if they can find a way to build back to what they were and find a way to get that winning mentality back. I don't know what year Lagway is. Maybe a sophomore.
He's a true freshman.
Okay, well then, we're going to have at least 3 more years of him. Maybe only 2, but at least a couple more years from him. And if they can find ways to enter the portal, and kind of build around him, they could have something.
Yeah, they can dip their hands in the portal. I'm sure these teams that have had an unexpected season, their players are going to kind of dip out, explore other options, and bringing up that point, now we have NIL.
Yeah.
So if Florida can drive up, keep that momentum they're having into their bowl game, their boosters will hopefully chip in and donate to the university, knowing that we have NIL and we can get these players down to Gainesville.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you there. I'm trying to think. I don't have a team right off the top of my head. Let me kind of scan through here. Ironically, again, love the Florida take. That's a hot, fresh take. I love it. I love the way that we can kind of interact about sports, and we have a lot of the same opinions, a lot of the same takes. But what I really, really, really want to talk about for a second is the Atlanta Hawks. And
oh yeah, they've been hot.
They leave such a sour taste in my mouth talking about them, because in years of past, the last 2 or 3 years, I've said the same exact thing. I've said they found gold with Trae Young, and now they're finding ways to build around him. And I think that that's just money. And what I really liked is they traded away DeJounte Murray. They saw they weren't going to have anything meaningful with him. They saw that they weren't really going to be able to get anything churning. They sucked with him, so they let him go. And who they brought in, a couple of bums, they've now been, that's what Atlanta does. They take these washed up old bums. We see it with Ray McCloud on the Atlanta Falcons. We see it with Dyson Daniels. And they take these kind of budding talents that haven't really grown into what they're supposed to be, and they turn them into that really, eccentric player that's very centralized to what the team's trying to do and what they can do. And watching the games earlier this season, I was like, oh my God, this is a playoff team. And then they went on a 6-game skid, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, you make these big pushes, you make these big runs, you do all these things right, and then you go on a skid, and then we get into that Atlanta depression. We've seen it with the Braves, we've seen it with the Hawks, we've seen it with the freaking soccer team, we've seen it with Atlanta United, we've seen it with the Falcons, of course, in the Super Bowl. We've just seen it time and time again, and you get into that funk. But I want to remind everybody, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We just beat the Cavs, beat them down 2 games back to back. This is a 3-loss team. This is the best team in the NBA.
They were 17-1 coming into the 2 matchups with the Hawks.
We handed them 2 losses. They were a 1-loss team. We handed them 2 losses. I want to emphasize the importance of that. That's huge. Not only for us as a program, but the waves that made in the NBA. That's just massive. Yeah. And that whole trajectory, and then we beat the Hornets, who sucky basketball team, but they've been giving us trouble for the last 4 or 5 years. They beat us sometimes they win the whole series. Sometimes they come in, they beat us 3-4 times a season, and it's like they're always the worst team, but they somehow manage to beat us. We got the close win in that one, I think it was last night.
And even losing to the Pistons, it drives you down.
Yeah, and but yeah, those wins, they're big, but losing, I mean, we lost to the Wizards twice.
Yeah.
So it makes you think, it's like, what the heck? But what I really want to emphasize, we got Reza Shea. No, he's not Wembanyama.
Yeah.
He's not. Most young players take time to develop, and he's developing nicely. If anybody's been watching these games, he's kind of taking slow steps. He had that big 30-point game. He's regressed a little bit, but I mean, he had 15 points last night. He gets the blocks when you need him. He gets the steals when you need him. And I think people overlook the young talent that we have. You got Reza Shea, you got Dyson Daniels, who are both budding stars. You got Jalen Johnson, who just signed a big contract. Obviously, they believe in him. You got two great centers. You got Clint Capella and you got Okongwu. And you've got so much momentum. You could trade away Trae Young. I've heard people talk about this. I think you could trade away Trae Young, and instead of building around a player, you can just build a winning team. But I also think with the team that they have, they can keep all the same players and still, as long as they find a way, Snyder has to find a way to really build a winning mindset, and he has to find a way to get these players to mesh. And if he can do that with or without Trae Young, I think you can build a winning mentality here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And even if they trade away Trae Young, they can still get a good haul in return.
They could absolutely get a lot of good stuff for him.
They could get a couple picks and like I play Madden a lot, a puzzle piece to that offense. So when you trade somebody on Madden, they have a little puzzle piece in the corner. And what you do is you bring them in and they mesh with your offense. So even if they look at that trade deadline, no matter where they are, first, well, I doubt first, maybe mid-pack with
6th or 7th.
6 or 7 play-in status.
Yeah.
They can look at trading Trae Young for picks and a role player.
2 picks and like a decent offensive role player. And I honestly think if they find a way to go on another skid, which knowing Hawks they might, they probably will be looking to trade him away. That's what they did with DeJounte Murray. It might happen after the season. Hopefully it happens during the season. But yeah, whatever form that may take, I love the outlook of this team. They're young, they're good, they're feisty. I like everything about them. I'm gonna check this camera one more time just to make sure you are still with us. All right, it's looking good. So we talked about that. This is not something that I have in my notes, but me and Thomas were talking the other day. The sucky status of the quarterbacks in the NFL right now. It's been a down year for all quarterbacks on all levels, but who's the guys who it's been worst on? Aaron Rodgers,
He's a bad man.
and Daniel Jones. Yeah. And we were talking about Daniel Jones the other day, and Thomas said something that rubbed me the wrong way because I hate Daniel Jones. I think he sucks. I like him, but I don't like him at the same time. Just because right when he shows flashes, I think he starts to disappoint you. And it's just so frustrating with a quarterback like that. And he was saying he thinks he's going to be a starter, and I think we can go ahead and get the timer booted up for this because I think we are going to disagree here. But I don't think with the way the Giants treated him, making him a 4th string and then giving him the middle finger and pushing him out the door, I don't think any team sees that and then goes, oh yeah, this is our guy. And Thomas says he thinks that he actually made an audacious claim that the Cowboys might want him as their starter. And I just don't see it. I don't think any team really wants him as their starter. He might be like a Sam Darnold to be on somebody's bench. And I'm just now remembering that the Vikings actually just got him, right?
Right.
So what I want to say is, do you think, now that the Vikings news happened, obviously your position might have changed a little bit, but do you still stand on that claim that you think he is a starter? Have you started the timer yet?
Yeah, but I can restart it.
Yeah, go ahead and restart it. We'll start it. We'll start it from the jump from right now.
Taking all that into account, now that he signed with Minnesota, my point was my claim was look at the Raiders, right? Gardner Minshew had a couple breakout seasons, but he signs with the Raiders, trying to be the journeyman quarterback, the bridge quarterback, but just can't seem to get it done. So your backup is now former Falcon, who's put us through a beating, Desmond Ridder, right? And he seems, he's seen, I've improved, I can do it. And he comes out, same old Desmond Ridder, right? Same with the Cowboys, right? It's not Dak goes out. Cooper Rush has seemed to, he took him on that run when Dak was previously injured. But that was with a stacked Cowboys team, right? They still had some stars. And the Cowboys did nothing in free agency to add on to their
Crapped
roster.
the bed. They crapped the bed, yeah.
So look at it this way. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have you have CeeDee Lamb on offense. That's about it. Just CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe Dottle. Maybe Rico Dottle.
Maybe Rico Dottle. So my point was, like, maybe if you bring him in, because Trey Lance, obviously, not
Not the guy you want.
the guy you want, borderline bust, but really hasn't been given a chance. Had a couple starts in San Francisco, but got injured, and then back to second or third string, and then traded to the Cowboys. Obviously, Dak being Dak, and Cooper Rush back to third string, same situation there. So, more of my point was, if you bring Daniel Jones in, maybe he can take you from outside the playoffs, maybe to a wild card spot, but not deep into the playoffs.
But here's my question for you. I gave you a point for one of those arguments. My main question for you is, if he's shown that he can't do it with a decently talented Giants team, I think in terms of personnel, the Giants and the Cowboys are kind of similar at this point in time.
Yeah.
Maybe the Giants being slightly worse. If he hasn't shown you that he can do it with the Giants and the Giants are so out on him, what makes you think that he is capable enough to do it over there? And also, what I do also want to ask you is, you're saying, oh yeah, they don't have a guy that they can lean on. They don't have a guy that they can rely on. Why not go with a guy out of college, a Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, somebody like that? Why not go with somebody like that that's proved they have that winning mindset and that is on a hot streak, rather than going with somebody that, has been known to take craps in the bed and can't really perform? Why would you prefer that?
Well, that's where you run into another problem. You still have Dak, right?
Right, and you just gave him
You
$60
just
million,
gave him-
which is an idiotic move, but
And they're not gonna trade him away because
Right.
he's shown he could be hasn't won many playoff
he can be
games.
serviceable.
He can
He's shown that
serviceable.
he's serviceable, yeah.
He can take you on a playoff run, but maybe not win a Super Bowl or an NFC championship.
Yeah.
So you run into an issue there kind of with Trey Lance. Like, maybe Dak will have a minor injury, and then the college person they drafted, maybe Dylan Gabriel, late third or fourth round quarterback, comes in, shows some signs of stardom, but then Dak comes off IR and takes his place again.
So my question to you is, obviously you're making the claim now. It sounded like when we were texting that you were more of the impression that they were going to bring him in and he was just going to kind of be the starter.
Yeah, that's more of a bridge quarterback.
But now you're kind of. I think what I'm saying is, I'm going to present you with two outcomes, and I will give you a point because I like what you said there. But and we are tied 4-4. But what I wanted to ask you is, would you prefer they just kind of dump this season, leave Cooper Rush in, maybe try out Trey Lance? They kind of just dump this season and they go into the draft and get somebody to sit under Dak? Or would you rather they go out and pay someone like Daniel Jones to come in and sit behind him? Because I think I had to be under the impression that I would rather, obviously I'm not a Cowboys fan, but if this was my team, I would much rather, and what I think they need to do to win is, I think you kind of just chalk this season up to, you got cooked, you're no good, get a high draft pick, do what the Falcons did. Yes, you're locked into Dak for a little while, but maybe after 2 years you can say, we don't want you anymore, we want our young star to have this time. Would you prefer that? Do you think that that's the smarter move?
Obviously, you have a point there because Jerry Jones does not like to pay.
Cheap ass, man.
Obviously, you got a point there, so that might be the better option for the Cowboys. Because if you bring Daniel Jones in, you gotta have to pay him. So you do have a point there.
All right.
Bring a quarterback in from college, cheaper rookie contract, not worth millions and millions of dollars.
All right, I like that. I gave me the slight advantage there. That was a good talk, though. You shedded some light on some stuff that I hadn't thought about, and I, of course, shedded some light on stuff you hadn't thought about. And yeah, I enjoyed that discussion. But now, the real meat and potatoes of this conversation, and this is something that we do agree on. So I just wanted to give us a little bit of time to talk about this for a second. Aaron Rodgers, what the hell is going on with him? First of all,
He's cut.
I don't know what the Jets organization is doing by letting him go. I think they should have given him time. He had been putting up similar stats to Kirk Cousins, not the same, a little bit less passing yards. But you brought in Devontae Adams. You put all your chips on the table, made it clear that you were trying to make a push, and then they officially let him go, right?
What I saw is what they benched him, contemplating putting him on IR for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't understand why you're benching this guy. I don't think the other guys that you have are even close to serviceable. You're going to go from slightly losing games to getting beat down. So I think you should just keep him in. You put all your chips on the table for Devontae Adams. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't like what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, but he hasn't been poop. He hasn't been a bottom 10 quarterback. I think over the last few game stretch, he's been like pretty much Patrick Mahomes in terms of stats. You know, he hasn't been able to lead the offense, but that's because they have a sucky coach that they fired in Saleh, and they just haven't been able to get anything meshing. And that's the one thing that the Chiefs have going for them is no matter who's out there, they always mesh. I don't understand how they do it. They might have some genetic enhancing drugs or something, but I don't know. I just hate what they've done to Aaron Rodgers, the light that they're painting him in. Yes, he hasn't been great, but I don't know. I just think with a talent like him, you just have to let him play. And obviously you want him to get his way because you paid Devontae Adams and you brought in Devontae Adams. So
I think the thing that irritates me more about the Aaron Rodgers situation is just the New York Jets organization, period. You go through Sam Darnold.
Oh, the Jets, man, they're such a
You
dumpster
say you don't
fire.
want him.
Yeah.
So you go to Zach Wilson.
What a trash can. All right.
Obviously, he doesn't pan out. So you go out and say, well, what are our options? Obviously, Rodgers wants out in Green Bay, or appeared to want out. I don't know if that was an organization, let's move on standpoint. So you go out and say, all right, we may have found our guy in Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Let's go out and trade for Aaron Rodgers. That is the start of a potential Super Bowl title for the Jets.
Or what people thought at the
Yeah.
time, at least. Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't work out season one because he goes out and tears his Achilles like Kirk Cousins did last season.
Yep.
So then you say, okay, they're not in it towards the end of the season, so you say, let's just hold him out till next season.
Right.
Comes in and plays, shows good flashes
Yeah.
of prime Rodgers. Taking
Right.
off when he needs to, throwing balls down the field, finding ways to win. But it just seems like the Jets are dysfunctional and don't know what to put around him to
Yeah.
make him be successful.
Yeah, and I think my claim here, and I've always stood on this fact, is I think the Jets are quarterback killers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is bad right now. I think he's being made to look bad because you saw it with the Panthers. Holy crap. Panthers and the Jets are certified quarterback killers. And what I mean when I say this, every quarterback that has gone to the Jets has died there in recent years. You know, Zach Wilson. And it's not as good of an example. Well, actually, never mind. Here we go. Sam Darnold. He was on the Jets.
He went from the Jets to the Niners.
Terrible. He was terrible. You're not going to find anybody that's saying he was good. But was it him or was it the organization? Because he left, went to the Vikings, and now they're 9-2, and he's in MVP talks. So you know it wasn't him.
And he was just a bridge quarterback.
And then we saw the same thing with the Panthers. Baker goes there, craps the bed. Everybody thinks he's done for. He's going to be a journeyman. Now he's on the Bucks, also in MVP talks, throwing for 4,000 passing yards, getting a $40 million a year contract, or 35, whatever it was, and throwing for 30 touchdowns, not very many picks. Those teams are quarterback killers. You're doing the wrong thing by blaming the quarterback. blame the culture of the team, blame the coaching staff, blame the cohesion. You have to build around them better. And it's not just about pieces, because again, like we said with the Chiefs, on paper, they're not anywhere near a top 5 personnel team. But they found a way to find players that mesh, and the Falcons did that a little bit. We haven't found a way to win yet because we're still young. But like adding a little flashy guy like Ray McLeod, and adding little backup pieces to your running back room, and adding people on that offensive line. We have a great offensive line over in Atlanta. They don't have a great offensive line. They haven't been able to protect him. People thought they should have drafted a tackle in the draft. Do you remember who they ended up getting?
They drafted Michael Penix instead of a.
No, the Jets.
Oh, no, I do not. Can't remember.
I don't think they got an offensive lineman though. But a lot of people speculated that they should have.
They went out and signed those 2 players from the Ravens and the guy from the Cowboys, but they're up there in age and can't move fast. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and they just didn't pan out. But yeah, I just wanted to come on here and touch on that. Me and Thomas had some stuff on our chest we wanted to get out. This is bringing us towards the end. I'm going to check one last time to make sure you are still with us for this last segment we're about to get into. It's looking like y'all are. And this is obviously a topic that me and Thomas are very passionate about. He's got his merch on today. As soon as we get finished shooting this, we're going to go in and hopefully watch the Falcons upset the Chargers. I'm optimistic. I'm not planning on anything, but I am optimistic. So what we're going to talk about here to end is our thoughts on the Falcons, our thoughts on their personnel, our thoughts on the coaching, our disappointment level from the start of the season when we were really hot to where we are now, the state of the NFC South, just basically anything Falcons. And I just want to go ahead and turn it over to Thomas and get his thoughts on it, and then we'll kind of do a little back and forth, push and shove for a little while.
So, the Falcons are definitely a playoff team. Obviously,
Definitely a playoff team? You think that? Right
wild
now?
card.
Yeah, but they're not going to get a wild card if they don't win the division because of the
Yeah.
state of the NFC North.
So, the Falcons have to win the division, obviously.
They have to. And
Without losing games they're not supposed to lose.
they have 3 that they must win, that they need to win. And so, yeah, that was a bold claim, you saying that they're absolutely a lock, because if they fall apart, the Bucs can shoulder them out, because the Bucs don't have a hard rest of the season. They get to play the Panthers twice.
We obviously have to beat the Panthers. That'll basically sweep the division for us. Well, not sweep because we lost to the Saints.
To the Saints, but we'll be 5-1.
We'll be 5-1, so that would put a lock on the division.
That'll put a lock on the division.
But we have to find a way to not get injured. Because these past few weeks before the bye, we saw that we're a weak team without our pieces we need. Because we were beaten, we were battered, injured. Obviously, we got the Commanders coming up. They're a hot team. Faltered through 2 games, lost to the Cowboys. But just because they lost to the Cowboys doesn't mean they're a good team.
Doesn't mean they're a bad team.
They make them a bad team. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Jaden Daniels. If our secondary is
That
not,
boy's hot.
if our secondary and our linebacking core is not on point, he will toast us.
And our up front guys too. The pass rush.
The pass rush has been. We got Judon in the offseason. We thought, okay, we have a solid pass rushing core. We have, 5 sacks this year?
Maybe 7 now. 7 or... I think we have 10 probably now. But that's mainly what I wanted to talk about. First of all, let's go ahead and clear this air. If we go 3-3, do we win the division? That's my question. Because I think that's the most probable outcome. Do we think that the Bucs can come back and shoulder us out if we go 3-3? Because I think if we go 3-3, we might just be out of the playoff.
And the Bucs are getting. Obviously, they lost Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
On a dumb decision by their head coach. I don't know why he was still in when they were out of that game.
Yeah, that was an awful decision. I agree.
The Bucs are getting pieces back.
Yeah.
And Baker has been. He can lead a comeback.
Oh yeah,
He can-
absolutely.
So he's getting Mike Evans back and a couple of other pieces. So if they catch fire and the Falcons falter down the stretch and go 500, I believe the Bucs overtake us.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with that. I hate it. I hate that we're talking about this. We were supposed to be start of the season. Well, before the season, we were NFC South favorites. After the first 3 games of the season, we were NFC favorites. After the 6 games, after 7 games, we were NFC South favorites. And now I just don't understand what happened. I don't understand why we're having these talks about the Bucs potentially. This shouldn't be a conversation. But what I really want to talk about is what a lot of people, Dukes and Bell on 92.9, haven't been talking about it. People that talk Atlanta sports haven't been talking about it. I hope we make the playoffs. I think we will find a way. But what I really want to touch on and what I think is really going to stir up some productive conversation is this line. Let's say we go 3-3 or somehow we go 2-4, just completely crap the bed. We lose our playoff chances, right? Let's say we lose the ability to play in the playoffs and we don't play in the playoffs this season. What needs to happen between now and next season, personnel-wise, player-wise, mentality-wise, management-wise? What needs to happen so that we can make sure next year that doesn't happen again to a great young team?
So obviously this line has shown that they have weaknesses in protection. So I think going into the draft, you look at it, maybe free agency, but definitely draft. You assess your situation on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
You need a solid, maybe 2 pass rushers, or not pass rushers, or offensive linemen that can protect. And Terry has shown he can cook when he
Terry
needs
Fulton
to cook.
has been known to cook up something nice, yeah.
Maybe you go out and trade a couple picks for a couple linemen.
Yeah, I think, my opinion, the offensive line, I think you only maybe need one more guy because you have a great center.
Yeah.
Who is it? Is it Gare? Who's the center?
Is it? I know we got rid of Mac.
Yeah, Mac's been gone.
Is it Lindstrom? Is he the center?
No, Lindstrom's a tackle. I don't remember who the center is, but I know we have a pretty good center. We have Lindstrom is in a mid, but he's the best at the position. He's the best at that. I think he's either the left or the right tackle. He might be a guard, but I just know he's top 3 at that position. And then you have Bergeron, who's budding into a great pass protector. I think if you get one more guy on that line, you'll be good there. And then I think we need to invest. Holy crap, I think we need to put all our chips in. Not only do you go and trade for a pass rusher, I also think that you go and draft one.
Yeah.
And if not a pass rusher, just someone on that line, solidify the line, put someone up there with Grady Jarrett, and really solidify that to where they really have to hone in on that, and then put 2 guys on the outside. Because what people don't understand is that Judon has been balling out this season. He's been double and triple teamed, and they also haven't put him in blitz coverage.
Yeah.
They haven't put him in situations where he's been able to blitz, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's been disappointing with the sack." No, he hasn't. He's been doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's been getting doubled and triple teamed, and he hasn't always even been playing on the outside. And the other guys haven't been coming up with big plays. And we need somebody over there that can match him. We need somebody on the other outside. We thought Berlin Trice was going to be that guy. Obviously, he got injured after the season. And there's no evidence that he could have even been that guy. He was a 3rd-round pick. They don't usually pan out. I'm losing my breath here. But, because I'm just so pissed off with what this organization has been doing as of late. But I think that's what they need to do. I think you probably agree with that. Their skill players are amazing. They've got one of the best running backs in the league. He's going to be around for a long time. They've got Kirk Cousins. They've got Penix sitting behind him. They've got some of the best pass catchers in the league. Darnell Mooney has been balling out. Drake London has been balling out. But yeah, do you agree with that's what they think that you think they need to do?
Yeah, I agree with that. In a lot of opinions, going last offseason were questionable moves, but like you said, why did they sign Mooney? Why did they? We gave this guy a big contract, but now look at him.
Deserved it.
He deserved it.
He really, that was a really good option. But yeah, I think the secondary. A lot of people have been saying the secondary hasn't been good. I think they've been good. I think
Justin Simmons has been balling.
I think they've been where you want them to be. I mean, Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons have both been great. Obviously, Simmons is older and he's still been balling out. A.J. Terrell has shown that he's a serviceable corner.
Going back to one of my points earlier, the Chiefs would have 3 losses
Yeah,
because
of that call.
of a missed pass interference.
Yeah.
And you're talking about our secondary. Justin Simmons picked him off for what, a 5th time?
Yeah.
And then Atlanta kind of just
Justin Simmons has picked him off more than any other player.
and Atlanta just was Atlanta and kind of couldn't find their way back into that end zone. But we're talking about this because of a missed pass interference call.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think you can give a lot of it to the missed calls. You get into a little bit of a dicey conversation when you talk about missed calls because everybody's like, well, you had another chance. I understand, I get it, but yeah, what we're talking about here, secondary has been great. You can't fault the secondary. The offensive line has been great. But yeah, just to close this out, I just wanted you to go ahead and talk about your opinion on 2 things, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Do we have 2 top 12 wide receivers right now? Do you think that's a true statement? If not top 12, top 15, or whatever, dice it up however you want.
I believe Drake London and Darnell Mooney are top 15.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that Mike Evans was out for a lot of the season, and Chris Godwin is gone. T. Higgins hasn't been playing at the level that he's been playing at. Devontae Smith probably isn't going to reach 1,000 yards now that he had the injury. And the reason why I mention all this is because I think we're going to be the only team in the NFL at the end of the season with 2 1,000-yard receivers. And that is a big accomplishment. One of which, because I was talking with my dad the other day, it's been so long since we've had 2 1,000-yard receivers. It's been years.
Especially with our quarterback situations we've had the past few years. I believe that it's definitely an accomplishment. Because the past few years, the games we won, we've had to rely on our kicker, which
hasn't been happening this season. Yeah, you lean on.
We're scoring points.
Yeah.
We're getting in the end zone, wide receiver and running back wise, and then you have a solid check down in Bijan Robinson if you have to check it down.
Yeah.
So I believe Drake London and Darnell Mooney are top 15.
Absolutely, I agree with you on both of those points. And then we're gonna wrap up with this because I know this is a burning question, a burning topic on a lot of Falcons fans' minds. What the hell is going on with Koo? What's been happening with him?
Man.
Me and my dad, we observed some things. He does this thing. It's very traditional for kickers to line up and then they take their 3 or 4 long steps to the left. Koo, I don't know if he started doing that at the beginning of his career. It seems like he did in my head, but this year he's been lining up straight in front of the ball and he just kind of walks up. He doesn't go at an angle. And me and my dad wonder if that has anything to do with it. I kind of wanted to get your opinion on it. What's going on with him? What do you think?
Yeah, Koo's definitely found his slump, man. Without, we could be talking what ifs like the Chiefs games, but what if he made those field goals he needed to make? We would be looking at a clinch right now.
Yeah.
And definitely at least 7-4.
Yeah, I mean, I think you win at least one more game, if not 2, because I mean, he missed 3 field goals, and that was the difference in the Saints game.
I mean, he made those 2 that were their only points in Denver, but.
Well, what do you think is going on with him? Like, do you think he needs to change his kicking posture? Like, what's happening with him?
It has to be something in his mechanics.
Yeah.
I think he does the same when he goes to kick at the net. He just goes straight up and kicks it. So it has to be something in a mechanic. Could the wind didn't have any factor because they play in a dome.
Yeah.
So we can take the wind factor out of it.
Yeah, it's not the wind.
So it has to be mechanics wise with him.
Yeah, and the final thing that I wanted to ask you, do you think he turns it around now that we're trying to make a playoff push? You think he gets it together?
I think that they've had the bye, so I think they've had long enough.
Hopefully somebody rang his ass out and said, get your crap together, right?
I think they've had long enough to see that Denver was a potential winner. Obviously, they didn't produce anything. And the Saints game could have been a clinch.
Yeah.
And I believe he reviewed the film. They've had two-ish weeks. About 2-ish weeks. to fix what they need to fix.
Absolutely.
Now they're the Atlanta Falcons. Could they have fixed that? Maybe. Could they have not? Maybe.
Yeah. So it's all yet to be seen. But on that note, I wanted to thank you all for joining us for this long hour. I want to especially thank Thomas for coming out and joining me. We had some great discussion. I did end up winning just by 1 point today. He got me on several points, but I think more importantly than anything, we just kind of reframed each other's mindsets on a couple of things. We agreed on a lot. This was mainly a discussion. It wasn't as so much a debate. We only wanted to debate on the things that were really super debatable for us, and we only have a couple of things that we kind of butt heads on, just because we watch sports in a lot of the same ways. But I really wanted, obviously we're both big Falcons fans. I didn't have my merch on today. He always comes out reps his team, even in their hardest times. But yeah, again, I just wanted to thank you for coming out, watching Joey's.
No problem, brother.
I wanted to thank the audience and thank Thomas for coming to Joey's Corner, spending an hour with us, and yeah, we're gonna go watch some Falcons football. Hopefully, the things come to fruition that we were talking about. Hopefully, Koo keeps it together and doesn't lose his mind, and hopefully, we win a game. So thank you so much for coming out, brother. You're welcome anytime,
brother.
and hopefully, we'll shoot again.
Oh yeah.
All right.